All right, top of the morning. Here we go. Brand new day. Happy Monday. And thanks for tuning in. Good morning, Underhill, Fairleigh, Brattleboro, Port Henry, New York. Appreciate your eyes and your ears. And I know it's Monday. Your eyes are probably saying, whoa, JD, seriously? Listen, I'm still recovering. It's going to take a while. You got Central Vermont's podcast. It's called Aired Out. We're live from Main Street in Barrie from Fly on the Wall Productions. Live on where? Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're streamed everywhere you get your podcasts. And yes, on the web at airedoutvt.com. Got to give a shout this morning to some high schools that just, what a weekend it was. Central Vermont schools capturing not one, but two state championships, Division 3 and 4. Montpelier made a D2 semifinal run before falling to Hartford. But just congratulations to all of the teams, all of the players, all of the coaches, the whole administration, the whole school. These kids worked so hard. And for many of them, final game of their senior year, their high school career. Lamoille, Hazen, Williamstown, the Blue Devils just kicked it, man. I mean, it was just an amazing weekend. Before we take a dive this morning, I want to say this. Being that it is Monday, some of us come out of the weekend and we've got the rain and the clouds and we're a little down. Maybe we had kind of a crappy weekend. Just remember this. I want to give a plug to one of our presenting sponsors, and they have been for a long time, Washington County Mental Health. Just remember this on a Monday morning, whether you've had coffee or not, that it's going to be a better day. I hope it will be for you anyway. Better mental health is achievable. It's possible. If you're going through a rough patch right now, and by God, we all do, just take it 1 hour at a time. Maybe give a phone call over to Washington County Mental Health, 229-0591. Here's the deal. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That means you're going to get someone on the other end of the line. They don't have to open up a case file on you. They don't have to find out your name. You can be anonymous. Just share your thoughts, your feelings. It's that simple. Find them on Facebook and Instagram, Washington County Mental Health. WCMHS. Where are they? They're everywhere. Right here in Central Vermont. And they have been for over 60 years, serving almost 10,000 Vermonters every single year, directly and indirectly. And I want to say that first thing on a Monday morning because I think it's important, especially when it's kind of crappy out and it's cloudy and rainy. Birthdays today, Reggie Brown, Jen Metcalf Chalot, Emily Gibbs, Anna Claire Ball. These are all local birthdays. Daniel Wilder Jr., Michael Flynn, Burr Morse on the list today. Not sure how old he is. Love that fella. Who do we have? Jasmine Evans, Richard Batchelder, a.k.a. Mr. B. Happy birthday, Mr. B. Alan Chase, Jeff Daniel, Donna Guile Costi, Kathy Robinson, all on the list today. 40 degrees right now, some localized downpours earlier this morning across Central Vermont. Rain's going to be off and on today, going to be mild, 57 degrees. Enjoy it. Why? Because we're going to get down to 30 tonight with the rain. Great arthritis weather right there. And then tomorrow, back to the cold, 34 and cloudy, 32 with sun and clouds on Wednesday, Thursday, snow showers and 40. Same story on Friday. At least we're not in the Upper Peninsula, Lake Superior, right now. 50 to 60 mile an hour winds. Now, with a blizzard, how much snow is going to be falling up there over the next 72 hours? 4 feet. That's 4, right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. At least we're not there. Sitting next to me on the curvy couch is this guy and I refer to you, Gabe, as the real deal because I feel that way, man. You know what you're talking about with a lot of stuff. Host And let's give you a shameless plug here of the Abundance Agenda. That's your podcast. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I launched the Abundance Agenda. If you think of, we've had a lot of conversations about affordability, and the Abundance Agenda is based on an idea, kind of came out of some work by the Vermont Futures Project. There's a great book that's been published by Ezra Klein on abundance. The idea is we're competing between ideas of scarcity, which is like, hey, let's tighten our belt, let's like cut spending, we just can't afford this stuff anymore. But the challenge with that is, the more you cut, the more we're in a downward spiral. We need to make investments. So the Abundance Agenda is about where can we make smart investments in our community to try to make something awesome for the next generation, right?
Yeah.
We got to turn something over that was better than what we were handed. And that's what it's all about.
Fertilizer on the plants, man. We need more growth and sustainability here in Vermont,
100%.
for sure. And you and I have chatted about this a little bit on the air, and I look forward to having you back and taking a deeper dive on it, because here we go. I mean, springtime's right in front of us, and we're breaking ground on some really exciting new projects.
Oh, there's a lot of really good stuff going on.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Barrie has a lot going on. But, all of our communities, they're working hard. People are working hard. They're rolling their sleeves up. There's some exciting stuff going on in Montpelier.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of the communities are trying to figure out how can we tackle the housing crisis, right?
Yes.
How do we tackle affordability? How do we create an environment where people can afford to live and want to be, right?
Right.
So,
and literally, I could talk with you about this all day. I could sit down and go 4 or 5 straight hours with you about this. I mean, look what they're doing over in Berlin with the mini homes over there.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that was so cool. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
ADUs are the
so
rage
many good
right
things,
now.
and there are a lot of good people out there trying to make a difference. So,
Yeah, good stuff, man. And so let's do this again.
yeah,
Soon,
100%.
you and I. Listen. I have. First of all, you're a local guy. Where'd you go to high school?
I grew up
not here.
No, I grew up in New Hampshire.
All right.
We landed in Vermont. It's been 14 years.
All right.
I'm sure you want to talk about my background a little bit, but I was an Air Force officer, and my last post was over at Norwich teaching ROTC.
Wow.
So I landed there and then launched a financial advisory practice, and I've been here ever since. So
right.
we live in Montpelier.
Air Force.
Air Force, yeah.
Wow. Thank you for your service. You have spent a great amount of time in the Middle East. Tell us about what that is. We're talking about a couple of decades in the Middle East.
Well, I mean, I spent outside of my first 2 years, probably the rest of my career was focused on the Middle East. There was a lot of touch points. Think about it. Just think of where the world was. I got commissioned in '94. My first post overseas was in '96 in Turkey. And then pretty quickly after that, we ended up 9/11. Just think of everything that happened after that, right? I retired in 2015. So, yeah, everything was touched by the Middle East. I got a master's in Middle Eastern Studies. And, yeah, I probably have about 6 years of living overseas. And then, the rest of my career was, did a bunch of staff work at the Pentagon on the Middle East. I mean, I've done a lot of Middle East stuff. Let's just say that.
6 years at the Pentagon?
I think it was 5-ish. Yeah. Yeah, I had a year on it's complicated, but yes, I was on the Joint Staff for 3 years. I was actually the Iranian desk officer for part of that, working over at the White House and all that kind of stuff.
So you were literally briefing the White House.
So the way that works, right? I was just at that time I was a major. Yeah, you got staff officers that are supposed to be expert in a lane, right? So I was the Iran desk officer. And so I would meet with other sort of mid-level people. If we went over to the White House Situation Room, we're meeting with other mid-level people. But I would brief the chairman and the vice chairman when they would go over to brief the president, right? So we'd get them ready for the bigger meetings, and we'd attend sort of they call them working groups. So we'd be in the working groups, sort of hashing out, making the sausage, right? And then we'd provide our bosses with what they needed to inform the president.
Holy moly. That's a lot. That's crazy impressive, man.
I prayed every day. I'll tell you what.
Wow.
I think everybody that was there just felt like we have the whole, we got the whole country in our hands. We got all of our service members in our hands, right? I was there, most of the folks there were coming out of Iraq. It was a pretty tough time in Iraq. I started on the Iraq desk. A lot of folks had seen a lot of friends die. These are the people that I was working with, rubbing shoulders with every day. People would just come out of command in really tough places. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I was alone and praying every day. I felt like, boy, we really need to do good for our people. Like, how do we make the best decisions in really complicated situations? So
What was going through your mind a couple of weekends ago? What are we into the third week, I think now, of the war in Iran? What was going through your mind on that? I think it was a Saturday, maybe an early Sunday morning, when you learned, and maybe you learned like so many others who just turned on their phones and saw all these World War III memes that were everywhere, that just saturated social media. But what was going through your mind when you heard that we were bombing Iran and took out Khomeini?
yeah, I was not surprised. I mean, I was more surprised in January. I mean, we had probably 30-some thousand Iranians killed in the protests there.
Yep.
I was more surprised at how little coverage that was getting in the press, right? Like, that was sort of astounding. You could get it. Actually, the best reporting on it were being done by Iranian expats on social media. If you wanted to know what was actually happening, they were in communication with their families in Iran, and they were putting out the best. And it's like, what's the conspiracy here that the Western media, frankly, the world media, didn't want to tell that story? So, you were watching it, and there's a lot of people having, again, and if you're in sort of national security, if you follow those feeds and stuff, there were a lot of people talking about it. There was a clear buildup of forces. Because of the stuff that happened in Venezuela, we clearly were not positioned well enough to address that when it happened. And so, yeah, I was not surprised. I think in fact, I had thought it was going to happen several days earlier. But no, I'm not surprised at all.
How long do you think this Operation Epic Fury is going to last? I mean, initially, within the days of the beginning of the bombing, President Trump was saying a couple of weeks, 4 weeks. A lot of people were saying wishful thinking. I mean, here we are into the third week, and it looks like this isn't going to be even slowing down anytime soon. I mean, we're ramping up. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm somewhat concerned. I mean, I read you don't know, like, there's all kinds of leaks, right? Who's got the real info? There was an article in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend that sort of implied that Trump didn't realize that the Straits of Hormuz might get jammed up. Like, are you kidding me? Everybody who follows the Middle East knows that's Iran's plan. If you threaten us, we're going to jam up the oil. Like, that's been their game plan forever. So,
which is 20% of the oil distribution in the world.
It's just
coming right
it's
through
like,
there.
Is that accurate? That his advisors never? I mean, I just don't know, right? But I would say this, like, no, this is, when you look at, there's been some good reporting on how Iran pivoted after, the attacks last year on the nuclear facilities, right? That they recognize that they were incapable of really defending themselves against Israeli and American air power. And so they gave directions to the IRGC, who are sort of their paramilitary. They're the really bad dudes that sponsor all the terrorism, to, hey, whatever happens to us, you operate independently. You are sort of a guerrilla force. You have authority to do whatever you need to do wherever you are. You don't need higher level command. And they switched their game plan. And so when you look at that and you say, okay, even if the majority of Iranians wanted this regime gone, the guys that have the guns have been told, you don't need any orders, carry on, like, do your thing. And I don't see how in an environment like that we think this is over in 2 or 3 weeks. I think best case scenario, what we really ought to be advocating for is something more akin to like a containment situation. We had in Iraq, if you sort of think of like the Iraq invasion into Kuwait and then, Desert Storm and us pushing them back. We just said, look, you're going to time out. We're flying your airspace. You can't kill people. Like, you're under massive sanctions. Nothing is coming in or going out without our permission. Saddam, you do whatever you want. We don't care. We're not going to go in and police you guys. We don't have the energy to do that, but you're not going to do any more terrible stuff. That's basically where we need to get to. These other kinds of things, like 2 weeks, like, maybe 2 weeks we've hit all the targets that we can hit from the air. We're not going to be done in 2 weeks. And then the reality is, like, there's finally some good reporting on this. Are we going to just leave a bunch of nuclear material in Iran with a bunch of terrorists? Like, that's going to be a major operation. There's going to be a lot of special we need to get that nuclear material out of there.
Where is this uranium-rich material right now that apparently Iran was saying they had enough to make 11 nuclear bombs.
Yes.
Where is this uranium
So
right now?
ostensibly, it would be under some bombed out sites, right? That we did a lot of damage to. But there's also reporting that they've moved things, that they've got covert sites, they've got a lot of stuff. The reality is, we don't know. We don't know. Like, how good is our intelligence? Clearly, Israeli intelligence is pretty good based on their targeting. How good is our intelligence? Like, we don't have a significant presence in Iran, and so how good is the information we have? But certainly, like, you think of those major sites like Natanz and other, we need to get in, and we need to clean that place up. And that is not like a small, even if it's a couple thousand people, it's going to take a couple weeks. I just don't see, like, the people who are, this is going to be done in a second. I don't see how we let that stand, how we're going to let fissile material just float around.
That's something I'm wondering. And when I hear this, I wonder the same thing. I mean, right now, I think the focus, the concentration is that we are taking out or trying to take out some of the missions manufacturing units so that they're not able to continue to shoot. But still, we have a much bigger problem that's in front of us. And look at what's going on with Russia now. There's been word for at least a week now that Russia is providing intel to Iran on what America's plan is here.
Yeah, if you're an adversary of the United States, this is such a great opportunity to just jam us up.
Yeah.
Right? Just be like, and frankly, look, what have we been doing with the Ukraine? We don't have any boots on the ground in the Ukraine. We're training, we're advising, we're giving them a ton of weapons, right? We're causing problems from Russia. I mean, what would you expect them to do?
Sure.
Right? Like, we're providing targeting information to the Ukrainians, I'm sure, right? Like, you don't think there's fair play in that when they turn it around. So, yeah, and there's a lot of danger there, right? More from China, I think, necessarily than from Russia, right?
I was going to ask you about
China. You look at China, like, the majority of their oil imports coming from Iran, and the relationship that they have there with the Iranian regime. Again, we've for some reason we've charted out a course of confrontation with China, and Xi seems like he's got, I'm not an Asia expert by any means, but he seems like he's got a path that he's on that he wants to see in his lifetime to leave his legacy. And we're creating we're creating an opportunity for them. You think of proxies, like we've always talked about Iran, and they've been happy to use proxies all over the Middle East to cause problems for us. China and Russia, if they want proxies, they've got happy proxies right now, with the IRGC and the Basaj, like, these guys are so happy to get whatever support they can get, right? So if you want to cause problems for the United States, you got an instant place to do it.
What do you, what's your thoughts about Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, that are all, that haven't really committed to jumping into the mix here just yet, or as much as they could? What do you think about that?
Oh, I don't know that that's accurate. I think the reality is that they are decapitated in large matter, right? That what happened after October 7th, and the reality is, so, like, back in the day, and I think there's plenty of public not the details of the war games, but there was plenty of public information about war games. Like, when Obama came in office and was trying to figure out, hey, do we negotiate settlement? Do we do a strike? Like, everything was on the table, right? We had Bush policy was sort of like kind of containment, and Obama's like, what do we do? Right? The reports are these guys are actively pursuing a nuclear weapon. That's the info that we have. What do we do about that? And so everything was sort of looked at, and the war games just showed a pretty terrible, just a conflagration in the Middle East, a regional war, because of all the proxies that Iran had, right? They had this sort of Sunni or Shia crescent, they called it, like, just look from Yemen all the way across into Syria, like this massive amount of minorities that are all supported, by the Iranian regime. But what happened after October 7th was that Israel went on the offensive, right? And, just crushed Hamas, crushed Hezbollah. There's a resurgence in Hezbollah. You always have to be concerned about the Houthis, certainly have shown a capacity to create problems for shipping. All of that is like when you look at what Iran has done over the years. I mean, you're talking probably 1.5 to 2 million people have been killed by these proxies that they've used over time. Do they have the capacity to do that kind of stuff in the moment? I don't know that they're very strong. I mean, again, that wargaming that we did, I think part of the rationale, we'll find out someday, right? All the conversations that happen with the president in this decision-making process will come to light. But I think the reality is they couldn't do what they could have done in the past. And if you want to do something, this is the moment. This is the time, right, to do something. So, I'm not saying they're not going to continue to cause problems. They will. It's not what it was, 2 or 3 years ago, right? They've just been pretty seriously neutered. So
there's some pretty calm water, quiet environment right now in the Strait. I think China has got some boats moving through there. India has had some movement through there without any kind of warnings coming from Iran, but they've made it very clear that the United States is and Israel is not going to be moving any containers through there at all. What do you think is going to happen to the price of gas? It's already spiking.
Well, I mean, you got all kinds of speculation. I mean, I think
Sure.
$150 a barrel, we've seen it before, right?
Yeah, we have.
Can it go there? People, I saw some economists say 200. I mean, could it go there?
$8 a gallon is what I'm hearing in California.
You just think
come
the reality, like whatever you paid on heating fuel right now, like this year, like if that's up a third, it's pretty traumatic to just the average Vermonter.
Yeah.
Like the average American, right? If you paid $3,000 for heating fuel and that goes to $5,000 next year, that's a lot of money, right? So I think there's tremendous pressure on the president to try to get some resolution. I'm not really confident in the things that we're seeing. Like, okay, so we kind of broke it. Now we're asking international partners to come in and provide security. I mean, they probably will have to do it for their own ships, right? Like,
Sure.
what are they going to do? Like,
Sure.
But it's like, wait, we created this massive problem and then we're not going to like clean it up. Like to me, you broke it, you own it.
Yeah.
And again, I don't quite understand how we weren't aware that this was probably their easiest, like what you drop some mines, you send some low cost drones, you catch a commercial ship on fire. Like,
Yeah.
Forget it. Like nobody wants to go there. Insurers won't insure you. Like it's just got all these cascading effects. Right.
Right.
So yeah, I hope we can get it cleaned up quickly. But I think trying to pass the buck on everybody else, I don't think that's going to work. I think we're going to have to, unfortunately, do some work in there to secure the shipping lanes.
Yeah. Interesting. And maybe in the meanwhile, get on the exercise bike and get in shape and maybe get a bicycle for a little while this summer, because who knows what's going to happen, man? Who knows what's going to happen to the pricing? And I'm not trying to freak everyone out.
You remember this, right? Like,
Yeah.
you think back when we had, we had sort of, because of the issues in Iraq, we had sort of shut down shipping. I mean, that's all those, millions of barrels of oil that were kind of shut down for a couple of years until they got back to capacity. And we all remember what that was like. And what did we do? We didn't take the trips we took.
Yeah,
People were doing staycations.
Yes.
Right? Like people start looking at, hey, maybe you set your thermostat at 65 instead of 68, right? You just start thinking
Let's think about
things.
carpooling. The list goes on.
All of it, yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you about Khomeini's son. Please don't ask me to pronounce his name because I've got three or four different versions and I'm butchering it. There's speculation that he was taken out in that initial blast with his dad. There's speculation that he was injured from that hit and that he's recuperating, still alive. We haven't seen his face at all, at least on our networks anywhere here in America. Yeah. We've allegedly, I'm not sure if we've heard his voice or what we presume is his voice, but we've had a statement from him that has finally come forward acknowledging that he is taken over as the leader of Iran, which his dad did not want him to be at all.
Yeah.
For a number of different reasons, one of which there was a great question of his mental health. He had been through a lot of personal stuff, and that he was not fit to be the next leader of Iran. I know that it's kind of default here, but I wonder what you have to say about this. I wonder if this is going to stick, and if the Iranian people are satisfied.
Oh, I don't. I mean, I think
That's 56 years old, by the way.
I think the reality is it doesn't matter at this point. You know what it demonstrates. So, you know, if you go back to the Iranian Revolution and the Ayatollah Khomeini had written, before he ever came to power, had written this book on political Islam, which, you know, he was the supreme jurist, right? Like the top is, you know, Shia Islamic cleric around the world that's sort of revered as like the Pope, right, for Shia Islam. And had advocated for what, you know, a state could look like, should look like, according to, you know, their interpretations of the law of God. And so in that formulation, it should be the top jurist that would assume that role, right? That's, you know, again, that sort of Pope type figure. What you have in Mojtab, or again, however you pronounce his name, what you have in the Sun is somebody who's propped up by the more radical extreme elements, the IRGC, did not go through the normal process of, you know, that you would come as an Ayatollah to sort of work your way through the ranks and achieve that sort of prestige, and, you know, that you have judicial opinions that are well revered and respected, that you're a holy man, that you have, you know, the following that it takes, right, to be at that rank. So he's, you know, basically what it says is the IRGC is in charge, the extremists, the radicals are in charge, and whoever comes after, because we could kill 1,000 of them and they're just going to put somebody else in charge. I think that's what's relevant, is that what came out of this is that that idea that was put forward originally by Khomeini is not what exists anymore. What now exists is sort of a police state. And frankly, it's a lot more dangerous. You know, like if you think of, you know, like when we grew up, like it was all about Al-Qaeda and, you know, Sunni extremism and that sort of thing. You know, Iran was happy to work through proxies and be sort of, you know, have low attribution to what they were doing as a state, right? They wanted to maintain the state. If they're in a place where they are happy to become the primary actor because they're at war with everyone, that's super dangerous. That's way more dangerous than Al-Qaeda. Way more dangerous than Al-Qaeda. You're talking about, like, you know, a couple thousand people that trained in some mountains of Afghanistan. No, you're talking like hundreds of thousands of trained military folks with hundreds of thousands of additional guard and you know, would-be followers. That
hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, their whole, you know, just think, you know, they've got regular standing army, but, you know, you think of the IRGC, and these are all people that are true believers in sort of that radical interpretation of Islam. And again, there are people that have access to fissile material. There are people that have access to war machines. There are people that have alliances with Russia and China, right? Way more dangerous, I would say.
Before I forget, and I'm sure you're paying attention, you probably already know this, but now we've got North Korea saying, no disrespect, Kim, if you're listening this morning, hey, don't forget about us. We're over here. Hey guys, let's just fire off a couple of missiles out into the ocean just to let everybody know that you know, we're still here. Pay attention to us. What do you say about that, Gabe? I know it's kind of a blanket statement, but
well, I think I'm just going to turn it maybe just a little bit to talk about, you know, what has been said about the Iran conflict, which is, you know, and I think it's what gives rise to people like, you know, whatever vagabond state wants to create whatever sort of chaos, is that we've gotten into this, and we've seen it before. We've got into a partisan situation in domestic politics where it's like we got one party like, oh, this is an illegal act of war. Like, what are you doing? And we've got another party like, oh no, we're going to just kill everybody. I mean, I can't quite understand the extreme positions of either of these, right? But when you look at what statesman-like behavior has always been in the past, has always been come out and explain what you're doing, right? Like declassify some information. I actually have no idea, and I follow this really closely. There's some reporting that, hey, they were getting ready to move their fissile material to sites that we were never going to be able to get to because they're way too deep and way too secure. Wow. I don't know if that's true or not. Like, they haven't told us the story, right? So come out and tell us the story. Tell us what the objectives are. Like, what are the objectives? When is it going to end, right? Get some international partners on board. And when you don't do any of that, when you just come out and do whatever you want to do and you don't explain that and you don't do that regular political process, what it does, it allows again, can Russia do whatever they want? We just did. We didn't feel like we needed to explain ourselves well. Can China, can North Korea, can any rogue regime just do what they want and say, what do you mean? Like, we didn't need to take this to the UN. We didn't need to have this conversation. So I think, unfortunately, our political system is trying to make this about an election that's happening this fall and not about what it should be. These things should be nonpartisan. Look, it's in nobody's interest for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. It's in nobody's interest. Again, couple million people killed, like the entire instability that this regime has caused. Nobody should be any kind of fan for the Iranian regime, right? The fact is, this should have probably been done a lot sooner, but maybe the moment didn't arrive until it arrived, right? But we should be like, how do we hold the administration accountable to give us information that we need to understand why, right? I mean, frankly, we should, if this is going to continue as long as I think it will, there should be a war powers resolution, right, that the Congress puts forward. To have that, they need information and they need to understand the end goals. And this should be nonpartisan. Like, what do we want? We want free trade. We'd love to have the Iranian people free. That's a pipe dream. We're not really good at, this thing that you see in Venezuela. That's probably the only model that the U.S. can pull off. Take somebody out, let another strong man strong woman just lead it. Yeah. Right? Like, trying to say that there's gonna be some kind of democracy. Like, look, how long did we occupy Japan and Germany after the war? Like, are we prepared to do that? No, we have seen in Iraq and Afghanistan, we are not prepared to do that.
I see some of the comments on Facebook. Well, why is our oil going to be spiking up? Let's just tap into some of those Venezuelan oils that we've got.
I don't know. It's all supply and demand, right? And isn't it funny that the oil prices all went up like as soon as things happened? It's like, seriously, did you go buy that $100 barrel of oil yesterday and just refine it? No.
Well, all we need is a headline for all we need is the media controls everything. All we need is a headline for the price of oil to change. I mean, we all know that.
Right. It's crazy, right?
Yeah. I sent you a text on March 4th that I want to read here. And I know you've already kind of uncovered a little bit of this, but I sent you a text saying, did Trump undermine our national security by not seeking approval from Congress first? Do you think Congress would have approved the strike? Do we really believe that these strikes will ultimately have an effect on the regime, in the ideology in the Middle East, or is this just to prevent a nuclear strike from Iran? And that's been kind of the million-dollar question that's been going around. And it's created a lot of divide, too.
Yeah.
A lot of divide.
Well, again, this is, we have an election year, right? And so people, unfortunately, it's being used to garner votes. I mean, that's the reality. And, look, it's the system we live in. We understand how it works. But if we all just step back and just said, look, I mean, as freedom-loving Americans, as Vermonters, as people who care about the human race and also care about our local community, what do we really need done? And what we need some accountability.
Right.
And that's really the role that Congress should be playing.
Yep. Congress, do you feel that Congress also needs to understand that these windows can suddenly open and close so quickly? And sometimes we just need to respond for our national security as quickly as possible without sitting around and sitting around the campfire and having a little kumbaya discussion about this.
Oh, they understand. I mean, look, the reality is you can look at, when you look at partisan politics, presidents of every party have done this kind of thing, right? Like, you look at it, whether the Balkans or, Panama or, whatever it is, like, there's all kinds of instances of presidents using their authority as commander-in-chief to carry out limited, short-term actions that they think are in the interest of the United States, right? And so, whether that's lawful or not, what's happened is, basically nobody wants it to go to the Supreme Court, so they never really push the issue, right? Like everybody complies. So you texted me that, and my answer was, look, they briefed the Gang of Eight, which is what's required to do whatever covert activity was required before.
Within 48
and then
hours.
Within 48 hours, they went and briefed Congress, right? That's what's required. And again, if it's what the president describes, that it's limited, then okay, we did it for this reason, right? For the weapons program, and for the missile launches and degrade capability, and whatever those things are. There's been a lot of them actually the administration has thrown out there, but those criteria, right? And then it ends, right? And then it's sort of done. But I do believe this is gonna need some kind of resolution to allow more, whatever that is, that containment strategy, keeping the Straits of Hormuz open. I think Congress is going to need to get on board, and that's going to take briefings to Congress, right? It's going to take declassification of information. It's going to take a lot of conversation, and we're not there yet.
And unless Congress signs off, troops can only be there for up to 60 days, plus another 30 days to withdraw.
Yeah, and they do have, I mean, the Supreme Court has their levers, right? We're actually seeing it right now with Homeland Security. The lever is we're not funding that, right? That's all they have to do. We're not passing your defense budget, right? I mean, Gulf of Tonkin resolutions, that was decided by the Supreme Court. Like, you know, you can do whatever you want. You're not going to Cambodia. That is not what we've supported, right? You're not moving on beyond what we've said you can move beyond. So, Congress certainly can do that. I don't see a lot of accountability. I see a lot of, garnering support for an election. That's kind of what I see right now.
Interesting. I've also seen and heard, and we're getting a couple of comments here this morning, so I'm going to bring this up. And I'm improvising here. Iran didn't have their finger on the red button. This is just an Epstein distraction, an Epstein cover-up.
Look, I
know that's a big exhale right there from Gabe.
I'll tell you, like, I never was a conspiracy theorist about this Epstein stuff, but I will say I don't think that's what this is.
Okay.
But I will say I think there is clearly an effort by the administration to not release the information. You've had Representative Luna and some others who have, I think the Epstein files really represent probably an operation by Mossad to compromise, senior, elites that have impact and to put them in compromising situations. I mean, even from the Clinton, I don't know if you followed any of that, right? They got Bill Clinton, the story he says, look, they invited me to this hotel, right? They got pictures of him with getting a massage. They have pictures of him like just taking a swim. He's like, I went out to the pool for 20 minutes and took a swim. I don't even know who was there.
Right.
What is that about? Why do you have these photos? You have these photos so you can try to blackmail somebody someday, right? Like,
but people could make some AI stuff of you and I together right now. In that same situation.
I get it, but there is a reason that the president and his campaign was like, we're going to release this stuff, and then all of a sudden he's like, putting the brakes on, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and like, there's something there. There is a there. I don't think that has anything to do with. I think the moment was. I mean, again, the leaks are, and however good the leaks are.
Yeah.
The leaks are. Israel came and said a couple things. Probably a couple weeks prior to, look, this is what we know. They're getting ready to move. Like, we're not going to, if we don't do something now, we're not going to be able to do it. And then I think once all the forces were moved in, they had that critical meeting where it's like, with one strike, we can take out all these key leaders. We have to move. I think that's actually what happened.
And what was that, like 40 leaders, something like that?
Yeah, I mean,
we got intel that they're all getting together in the big house.
Right.
If you're going to fire.
If you're going to do it anyway, this is the day to do it, right?
Right now.
And I think that's the reality of again, we'll see someday. This will all come out, right? But I assume there's some fact to some of those leaks.
Congress hasn't officially declared war since World War II. Do you think they will?
Oh, I don't. I mean, I don't see why they would declare war. Right. I mean, generally what they do is they do, some kind of War Powers Act. Right. They give some kind of authorization for the use of force. And I think that's what would be appropriate here. And I think they're going to need to do it. I mean, the Trump administration doesn't seem to want to indicate that this is going to be a long-term operation. I really do think that that's a fantasy.
So you don't think this is World War III in the making?
Again, I think had this happened before all the actions of the Israelis over the last couple of years, I think it certainly could have been.
Yeah.
I don't think in the moment it is. If there's ever a nuclear weapon, yeah, that would be pretty terrible to put, I mean, and even like a dirty bomb, right? To put that in the hands of these people, where could they go? They could destroy New York City. They could destroy Washington, D.C. They could destroy Boston, right?
And we've heard rumors of I mean, Gavin Newsom is talking about this over in California, that there's some possible rumored threats of attacks into California. You've heard about that?
Yeah, I've seen the reporting. I mean, I know Trump was asked about this over the weekend, and I mean, his indication was, well, we've got all that covered. Like, we're watching all those people. We kind of have it. That puts a lot of confidence in the FBI that we really know everything that's going down in the United States. I'm sure we know a lot. Do we know everything? Like, that's a little bit of hubris. Again, I don't think they're at a place. I don't think they were at that place where they have that sort of nuclear device.
Yeah.
Can they cause other kinds of chaos? Yeah. Look, we're soft targets. Look at what they're doing in Dubai. Look what they're doing, or
right.
Yeah, you hit a. Think any soft target, right? Oh, we have the Final Four.
Yeah.
Let's just launch it. Let's just kill 10,000 people. Like, they could do that.
Right.
Do we think they couldn't do that if they wanted to? I mean, again, hopefully our borders are tight enough, but I think it's a little hubris to think that we need to be vigilant, I think, is the bottom line.
Are we ducking and dodging this whole girls' school tomahawk hit?
I don't know. Like, that's a really good question. I mean, you're always going to have collateral damage. It was so early. Like, if this had happened now, you could say, oh, yeah, maybe it was just an error, right? Maybe we made a big mistake. Being as early as it was, when you think of early moments in a campaign, the priority is air superiority. You need to take out all of the capability so that you can fly unrestricted airspace, right? And so being so early, I imagine that school is adjacent to somewhere nearby something that was a valid target. How it ended up going into the school, if that's the case, right? I mean, again, they have tons of propaganda. There's all kinds of things that can happen. I don't think we have the facts on it, so I hate to, really make a judgment. We don't even know that it was us, but if it was, it's a terrible tragedy. But again, these kind of things happen. If there was a legitimate defense target that close to a school, like, shame on Iran for you basically have human shields. Is that what you did?
Yeah.
I don't know. Pretty terrible.
It is. This morning, woke up all over the phone and in my ear about the new targets that Israel, mostly Israel, but some support from the United States, are going to be focusing on today. Do you ever hear stuff like this and say, God, this is a no-brainer. Can we talk about this after the targets have been hit? Do we have to make this known in our media that these are the targets we're going to be going after today? I mean, wow. It just seems like, I don't know, man. I know back in the 70s and 80s, before the cell phones and the information age was exploding, that we could do stuff like this. And the news, it seems, wasn't as overzealous as they are today on creating spin and getting ratings and being the first to report and so on and so forth. But man, it's like, that's scary to hear stuff like that. It just makes me think, why are we blasting that all over the media of what our intended targets are first thing in the morning on a Monday?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, news cycles. I mean, look at what you're doing, right? You got an amazing show, by the way, JD. We're so grateful for the work that you do. You got amazing sponsors. I mean, this is a great program to have something like this in Central Vermont that really is talking to the needs that we have here. But you're an example of the kind of, there's voices out there, right? There's people that are out there, and what we're seeing is that people are, we're sort of all in our own echo chamber because of algorithms, right? Like, whatever it is that we want to know about and hear, it just cycles through. And so I think certainly governments are in a position where they feel like they need to communicate information into those echo chambers so that their messaging is getting out. But at the same time, there can be legitimate military reasons for declaring targets. I mean, I had seen some reporting like over Gome that they had dropped some leaflets saying, just evacuate this city.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, that's a humane thing to do, isn't it? Like if you know that, hey, we don't know what's, and they did that all, I mean, I have other feelings about what happened in Gaza, but to the extent that they did some of that, they sent leaflets out saying you need to evacuate the city because tomorrow is going to be really ugly, right? And so there are humane reasons for telegraphing some of that kind of stuff. I mean, the reality is those targets, if you're looking at humans move, right? But if you're looking at fixed stuff, does it matter? Like it's not moving and we have air superiority and it's all going to go down. You might as, does it matter that we reveal the targets? We can do whatever we want when we want. Does it matter that we've told them? I don't know that it matters.
I'm seeing so much coming up about, and for some reason I'm drawing a blank. Haven't had enough coffee. These bombs that go up, they go up high 4 or 5 miles. They explode, and then all these little mini bombs come down. And
cluster bombs.
Cluster. That was the word that I was trying to think of. That Iran is using those, and that Israel is returning with cluster, which is really ugly stuff.
Yeah.
And I was reading about these cluster bombs and how small they are. And what are they, like 4 or 5 pounds each? And when they come down, I mean, they're not targeted to anything other than, let's be honest, civilians. Am I right? Or just anything?
Well, I mean,
they're not directed.
It depends on. No, they're not. They're not. So we have the ability to do precision strike today, right? Like we can go right through the roof of a car and take out a terrorist leader. We've demonstrated that. Obama demonstrated that.
The cluster stuff is ugly, dude.
I don't know enough about what their target sets are, but if you had the infantry base or the IRGC base, that's probably a legitimate use of those. Obviously, dropping those indiscriminately in places where you'd have a lot of civilians, I would think that violates the law of war, right? And so, I think we look.
Not that they give a damn.
Geneva. Well, look, like we have to be. This is another place I think where Congress can really help provide some accountability, right? Like statements that are made that sound like we don't care about the law of war, like Geneva Conventions, human rights conventions, all these things existed because of Eleanor Roosevelt, other great leaders from America got international partners on board. All of the things that we appreciate are here because post-World War II, America realized we never wanted to cluster bombing, like all this, blanket attacks on cities. Like we don't want to go there again, right? We want to do things differently. And so we have law of war and we need to, remind people of how important that is. And again, I think that's a great role for Congress. Those are the kinds of conversations that I think we should be having.
What do you think Mark Carney, the Prime Minister in Canada, is thinking these days when he gets up and begins his day with his morning coffee? What do you think's running through his mind?
I have no idea. I think all of our partners, and I'll just say this, like I was in Iraq, I was in Afghanistan. I've done a lot of combined, sort of multinational operations. Our partners are really, really important to what we do, but particularly, and this sounds terrible, but our Anglo partners are really important, right? NATO's cool. It is sort of true, like, and I'm not belittling the losses of somebody like a France or a Germany or whatever, but they kind of, when they come with us, they kind of protect their own interests. They don't like the objectives of the campaign and stuff. Yeah, maybe they're sort of on board. Their government voted them there. They sent them there. Like, we're here. Our Anglo partners are all in. It's just the way it is. They are joined with us at the hip. And so the problem with being a bad partner is, will we have that trust when we need it in the future?
Yeah.
And I do. I think, Canada and the UK and Australia, like, we just really need to recognize these are special relationships that are essential to our security. And whether it's economic policy, I mean, again, I'm not saying that we don't have a right to have conversations about trade barriers and make sure that we have fair trade or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Carney's pretty ticked off still about the tariffs, man.
Yeah, again, I think all of us, we can have our position as the United States. We can talk about those things. I do believe that trade hasn't been super fair for the United States for a long time. And so I think those things are worth addressing. But if we just abandon our partnership and belittle people and are unkind, right? Like, are we going to be able to rely on each other in the future in the way that we're going to need to? I worry about that.
Look at all of the countries here that are weighing in interest, vested interest in this show, and they're watching so carefully and maybe polishing up some of their own munitions here. There's a lot of countries, that are concerned and drawn lines in the sand right now. You really don't think that this is going to turn into World War III?
I mean, again, I think Iran has no capacity to create that kind of problem without some sort of aid. So, like you can look at Vietnam as an example. If China started backing, right, like that, or did we want to go to war with China? We didn't, clearly, or we would have won in Vietnam, right? We didn't want to go to war with China. So
we still don't want to go to war with China.
China providing support to, North Korea. If you have, one of these nuclear adversaries that got involved supporting Iran, could that lead to something? I think what you point out, though, is everybody has an interest in this. And as much as we all want to, like, power brokers have wanted to shift focus to Asia forever. I don't know why we feel like we need some kind of confrontation with China. But the reality is the Middle East is really still pretty darn important to all of us culturally, but still over energy, right? Like, there are some good, probably this will cause some rethinking about conversion to renewables, right? That as energy prices go high, people are going to start thinking, hey, should I switch over? Is the cost of switching worth it? It's cheaper. Is the cost of switching worth it at this point? So there could be some good things, but I think it's an opportunity now. We actually, I really like Marco Rubio. I feel like he is a really good Secretary of State. It'd be a great opportunity for him to start gathering like-minded peers like we've had in the past, to build a coalition and say, look, this is what the future state looks like. It looks like some kind of containment. It looks like protection of the trade routes. And these are all the willing parties who are going to be involved in that kind of thing. I think it's a great opportunity for us to do something like that and maybe step beyond the noise of the moment, right? And do something that looks American, like lead. Let's lead. I think there's a good moment to do that.
You have heard comments from family, friends, I'm guessing, or have at least read them. It's one thing if we think we're going to go in there and take out all their ballistic capacity and so on and so forth. And maybe we still have to find this uranium where it's hiding out, and maybe take out their nuclear capabilities. But it's a whole nother thing to try to blow up and permanently kill the regime, and that'll never happen.
It'll never happen.
This war has been going on for more than 50 years.
It's not. We don't have the ability to do that. Look at Syria's an amazing example, right? I mean, they had the Arab Spring was what, like 2008 or 9, somewhere in there. I mean, if the civil war is over, like maybe in November, like when they finally kind of got the Kurdish territories on board.
Yeah.
That's a long time. That's a lot of people dead. And Iran was partly responsible for that. But, the bottom line is, like, we can't fight somebody else's civil war. It's not our fight to fight. And I think in a large measure that, to some extent, that's what this is. This is somebody else's civil war. Do you mind if I digress for a second?
Please.
Here? So I'm just going to go back to 9/11. Before 9/11, shortly after 9/11, actually, Eric Edelman, who later became Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, he wrote this article called Somebody Else's Civil War. And what he was explaining was what Al-Qaeda was trying to do is they were trying to drag us into a conflict so that they would garner more support for their Salafi, this sort of extremist view of Islam, right? They were trying to draw more popular support. And their hope was that by attacking the United States, right, they would sort of stir the hornet's nest. And by doing that, it would unify all the people behind this, this idea of a political, regime, right? That they're going to take, sort of Islam's going to take over the world. It's a very good point. And to some extent, I think this is what we're seeing in Iran as well. There are no There are no intelligence reports, and in fact, what's been told to us, declassified reports, is there's no connection between October 7th and Iran. That's that they didn't greenlight it, they didn't know about it. I find it incredibly hard to believe that Iran, who has sponsored Hamas, who's the lifeblood of Hamas, that nobody there knew that they were going to carry out this attack. And I suspect that part of that, I think probably what was going on was there probably was a debate. This is my conspiracy theory, guys. Like, you just blame it on me. Nobody else has said this. This is just Gabe Lajeunesse, okay? Some guy that lives in Montpelier, so don't worry about it. But my conspiracy theory is that there was a debate inside the regime about whether they should get it. They were ready to break out to get a nuclear weapon. There was a debate about whether they should have one. And that's very similarly that the hardliners wanted to push the supreme leader or whatever needed to happen so that they could weaponize. They wanted to prove the fact that they needed not just the breakout capability, they actually needed the weapon, right? Now, I don't think they recognized that Israel was going to be able to go and do what they did, had the political will to do what they did, right? They didn't expect dismantling of Hamas and Hezbollah and the kind of ferocity that generated from the state of Israel. So I think that they sort of overplayed. If they were involved, they overplayed their hand. But the result of that today is what we see is that IRGC is in control. And if they can ever get themselves to a breakout, I think they will. Like, why would they not? We've just demonstrated we're willing to do whatever it takes to destroy the regime, apparently, right? Is that not good logic for why you should have it? Why does everybody else have nuclear weapons? Deterrence. Why would they not want deterrence, right? Like, to me, that makes total sense. If you're a hardliner, and I'll say this too, like, for people that don't know, it's complicated, right? Middle East is, anybody that claims they're a Middle East expert, look, they may be an expert in one little thing. They're like, it is such a crazy I mean, individual cities have tribes and stuff that go back thousands of years. There's nobody that's an expert, okay? But what you can say, looking at the entire situation, is that we really are there are opportunities. On the one hand, I saw some stuff over the weekend. Some of the folks are saying, look, we're going to have sort of another peace in Versailles. Like, how do we redraw the maps of the Middle East? There are some opportunities there, but I think there's we just need to be realistic that there's a lot of danger in the moment ahead.
I had a friend tell me that Khomeini is no more dead than Elvis Presley, implying that he's very much still alive. What do you believe? Do you believe the Ayatollah is still alive?
Israel says he's like seriously injured and barely alive. I don't know. Again,
we're not talking about his son. We're talking about
Khomeini.
Yeah, Khomeini.
Oh no.
You think he's out?
Oh yeah, that's crazy. No, I mean, I don't know. Why would if they're all in a building? So the way this stuff works, right? Like, you got sources on site who are telling you, verifying even if you don't have DNA, right? You got sources on site who are telling you in real time everybody's in the room. And then if you drop the bomb and there's nothing left of the room, like, I don't need DNA, right? We saw them go in.
Yeah.
They did not come out.
Yeah.
And we dropped the bomb and there's nothing left.
My wife said, how the hell did we get that intel? I mean, it's fascinating to me. Who was it that was there that connected in with the United States and said, we're on this, here's the address, we're on this room right now, I'm getting the hell out of here and going to the bathroom. Now's the time to hit go.
Yeah, I mean,
how does that work, man? That's crazy.
We've got, obviously, between us or the Israelis, there are some intelligence assets there. And I think given, I don't think we should be that surprised that we've got good access to it, given, when you're brutalizing your own people, right? There's going to be people that have even come up in the system but are going to start questioning, why are we part of this? Like, my son's friend got killed when he went out and walked the streets the other day because he was in the wrong place, right? Yep. So the fact that we have people that are willing to get paid,
dress the part, look the part, act the part,
have the promise of we're going to get your family out of here when they're safe. What I was actually hoping, like, when this all kind of kicked off and there was a lot of uncertainty. What I was hoping is, boy, I hope we have some assets there that are ready to be the Venezuelan equivalent of a strongman. I hope that there's like an IRGC leader or a regular army leader or somebody that's already on our books that thinks they can, that they can step in. And when that clearly hasn't happened yet, that gives me pause and concern. It's like, okay, we got into, at some moment, Trump's talked about, the Secretary of War, we've heard people talking about regime change as a potential goal of this thing. That could only really be possible if you knew that you had a strong person that was going to be able to wield those hundreds of thousands of militarized people and get them behind. And if we don't have that, then it's sort of like, maybe there's millions of people that would rise up. They're all going to get shot. Like you can't expect, this isn't France in the 1800s where they're going to throw the barricades down, right, and fight.
What was your reaction when Khomeini was hit in that first strike? What were you doing? Were you popping popcorn? Were you calling your buddies? Were you saying, I told you so, I knew this was going to happen?
I think people in the community were watching this. I don't think any of us were surprised. I mean, again, the leaks, like, I thought it was going to happen 4 days earlier. The fact that they were able to get everybody out, like, all at once, take everybody out at once, I mean, that was like, oh, they've got their intel's better than I thought it was, right?
Yeah.
That they could have that kind of access to that meeting. That's somebody high up, right? I mean, it could be the tea guy too. You don't know, right? The guy delivering tea, it could be that guy. But
sure.
But to have, the tea guy wouldn't know the details of all these people, these are all the names, this is all the stuff. They seem to have known have the list, right? They seem to have the list. So that indicates somebody that's, has some access anyway.
If you were the president of the United States, would you have buzzed into Congress and said, yo, we've got a 3-minute window here or a 1-hour window, or would you have just rallied the troops and aimed your target?
No, I think he did what every president has done, which is you do your attack, you have your element of surprise, and then you come out and you do a public statement, which is what he did. And then you go in and they came in within 48 hours and they briefed Congress and stuff. I don't.
You would have done the same.
Yeah, I think that's what you do. Like, what again?
Don't ask permission.
You asked before about target lists. Well, maybe at this moment it's fine to tell everybody because you're just hitting fixed materials and stuff. But at that moment, when you're taking out part of the command and control is the leadership, right? So when you're like, well, we're at least gonna create confusion because we're gonna take out the core leaders. That is part of this initial, in addition to the air defense capabilities, taking out those core leaders is part of that initial campaign.
Sure.
I mean, I think it doesn't matter party. This is what anybody would do.
What about, we'll wrap up here, but what about the UK? What do you have to say about Germany? What do you have to say about France? They're all saying, hey, we'll do whatever we have to do. But they seem like they're, pardon the lack of verbiage here, but on our side.
Yeah, I think there was, within the UK in particular, I think there were a lot of internal debates that were actually worth having for them.
Oh, yeah.
To figure out, like, what's going on. This is the longest part, it's a special partnership. Like, what kinds of things do we want to say, and kind of holding their prime minister accountable, like having some conversations about that kind of thing. But I think it is a really great moment for us to lead, and I hope that we'll do that. I'm sure from, like, again, coming off of the Venezuela, change, like, and that being so successful and so fast and so quick, and something apparently that's come out now, right? That he wanted to do that in the first administration, but he kind of got his advisors kind of tucked it away and didn't really follow out his guidance or something, right? So I think when you look at all those, when you look at that situation, you can say, oh, it's great to go it alone. This is not a go it your own. The long term, again, whatever the targeting that we're going to do, like, hey, we got the final, 200, 2,000, whatever the number of targets is, sure, we can hit all those. But once we're done the sort of peace operations, the stability operations, right, the containment operations, let's get a big coalition on board, because we all have interest in the region. We all have interest in energy. We all have interest in the Iranian people. These are, like, amazing, wonderful people, right? We all have an interest in this. How do we do that? And to get the more partners we have on board, the better, right?
Wow. Gabe, it's been just fascinating hearing you talk about this and breaking it down for us, man. This is one where I just got to go back and give it a re-listen and make sure that this one is shared with as many people as possible, because this just brings fantastic perspective, and I appreciate your time so much, man. You really know what you're talking about.
Well, thanks for having me on. And again, you just have a great show, and hopefully I didn't, this is all controversial. I hope people do make their own conclusions.
Sure.
I do think it's important that we don't get stuck in an algorithm telling us everything, right? I think, if you're a Fox News person, get onto MSNBC and read some of their perspectives.
Absolutely.
If you're a Wall Street Journal person, read the New York Times occasionally, right? Like,
yes,
we just get stuck in all our own headspace,
Yep.
and it's reflecting on us the same things we already think. We need to hear some alternative views, and you're not probably going to get persuaded completely, but you're going to hear some other things. We have a responsibility here. There is an election, right? We do make a difference, right? Again, I think if you look at the Homeland Security is a really, really awesome example. The American people were not happy with what they were seeing in Minnesota, right? The Vermont, our delegates did an awesome job of holding people accountable, right? We had Noam, was fired, resigned, whatever it is, right? She's out of the picture, right? There's still probably more accountability that needs to be held, but this is what we as citizens, this is what's important, is that we write our Congress, right? But to do that, be informed. Don't just get stuck in what the algorithm has told you to think.
Yeah, man, that is so, so important. Listen to as many different networks as you can. And you know what? Also, shut it off.
Yeah.
And go out and play with your kids.
That's right. That's right.
After a little while.
Some of the best perspectives, go for a long walk, go for a run, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gabe, thank you so much for coming in, man.
Thanks, JD.
The host of The Abundance Agenda. Where is that? It's right on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah. It's on Facebook. We're on YouTube too, but I'd say, we're still just I just started this in the fall. We're like 800 followers or something. Come follow us. Check it out. I mostly am talking about like local stuff, which is housing and healthcare and stuff like that. But yeah, come on and join us. We'd love to have you.
I really want to get you back on. I know we started off this morning talking a little bit about that, but I really want to get you back on and take a deeper dive on some of the stuff that you're talking about on the Abundance Agenda, which affects us locally right here. That's so, so important. And as I said, we're breaking ground on some really big things coming this spring and this summer when it comes to housing right here in Central Vermont. There's pros, there's cons, there's all kinds of stuff. I wanted.
Let's do it.
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
All right?
Thanks, JD.
Yeah, man. Gabe Lajeunesse right there. I said before, and I'll say it again. That's the real deal. The guy knows what he's talking about. Fascinating stuff this morning here on the Aired Out Podcast. Listen, take good care. Don't worry about the clouds and the rain and the dreary and drizzly. Just get out there, get a breath of fresh air. 57 degrees later today. Do what you can, because we're snapping back into the 30s immediately after this. So spring's coming, gang. It's going to start greening up out there real soon. Be good. Take good care. We'll catch you tomorrow morning as we dive into bullying tomorrow morning here on the Aired Out Podcast. It's going to be a sensitive one tomorrow morning, and we invite you to join us. Be well. God bless.